Bronny James is off to USC. This is Floor and Ceiling. Let's break him down. I've watched Bronny James live for 3 years across different contexts and teams. He's a legit contender for the best two-way guard in his high school class, and he's one of the cleanest NBA fits. I firmly believe that Bronny is a league-level prospect, regardless of his pedigree, and he can be a high first-round pick in 2024. A large part of that is already because of his shooting. Few prospects are as comfortable and as versatile from deep as Bronny. The 18-year-old guard has a pure, compact stroke from downtown and real diversity to his triples. Bronny can spot up, he can shoot off movement, pull the trigger coming off pin downs, at full speed off double staggers, and he can make these strays against the best of the best too. Bronny had a quiet end to his high school season, but he and Sierra Canyon were battling different minor injuries. In the boys' McDonald's All-American game, all 15 of his points came from three. Bronny has real range from the perimeter. He's comfortable stepping into three-point daggers and letting it fly from 30 feet without hesitation. Until the last year or so, Bronny had been a lot better purely spotting up, but now he's really expanded his arsenal of threes. Not only can he catch and fire at full speed and off of different movements, but he can also pull up from way downtown. We're talking NBA distance, if not deeper, on some of these strays. Like I said at the top of the video, Bronny's a great shooter. He has to be considered among the best in his class, given how repeatable his stroke is, the range he gets, the wide array of threes he takes, and how he's a focal point for every defense. Looking towards college, Bronny should be able to easily space the floor. I'm not concerned there at all. He has nice footwork, accelerating and then quickly stopping before pulling up into his compact jumper. And the Sierra Canyon guard makes the most of his possessions. He won't pound the air out of the ball. Rather, a lot of what he does is quick and assertive, without wasted motion. Highly valuably, this now includes coming out of screens. I believe that every guard who wants to play at the highest level needs to have this three coming out of a pick. In turn, defenses cannot go under on Bronny. If they do, he can make them pay. Every year, his range appears to get deeper, so the point of contact to defend him has to keep getting higher. This clip right here is impressive with how he gets into the three simply out of one jab step. The risk here in some ways is that Bronny's shot diet can look pretty complicated at times. He's capable of making the shots he takes, but they are high difficulty at full movement or from funky angles and distances. There's been times where Bronny hasn't been particularly efficient from three, but for now, I'm not sure that this is really a concern. He plays within the flow of the offense, so it's not like he jacks up shots early in the shot clock or interrupting his team's sets. Most of his looks make sense because he's actually capable of making them. I also think it's encouraging for the California-based guard to already be trying these shots. Getting these NBA-type reps in high school can be great for Bronny's development, which is certainly something that should be noted. It's been a careful process, and his numbers have never leapt off the page. As a senior, he averaged 14 points and about 5 rebounds and 3 assists. But the thing is, Bronny always understands his role to the utmost degree. This past season, he elevated his overall scoring and playmaking, but other years he was also comfortable as more of a role player next to Amari Bailey or BJ Boston. Which brings me to how Bronny can also play off the ball. Now, James is definitely a guard, but he's not a pure point guard in that he doesn't need to have the rock in his hands all the time. If anything, I actually think Bronny might be better next to another capable ball handler. At the next level, this can also work next to a wing-sized ball handler, the likes of which are more common in the NBA than in high school or college. The key thing for me here is that Bronny understands a concept that's simple in theory, but hard in execution: how to space the floor. At 18 and just graduating high school, Bronny already grasps how to hold his spacing, when to do so, when to cut to the rim or move somewhere else, He's constantly able to get himself open, and then he converts on his trays. Down the line, Bronny projects as a great floor spacer. Inching closer to the rim, the main note here is to highlight James's budding athleticism. Bronny has really blossomed into a mature 6'3" with wide shoulders and tree trunk legs. That allows him to play bigger than his size, which really shows up on the defensive end like we'll get into. But in this athletic maturation process, Bronny's first step has also really improved. He's a strong, straight-line driver who can play and finish above the rim. Right now, this does show up more in transition than in the half court. Bronny is a really powerful athlete with space in front of him. He can throw down some mean dunks and also come up with some acrobatic finishes. But still, finishing is probably James's most important improvement area right now. I'm not overly concerned about his touch or the process because largely he's making the right decisions, but he can leave points on the table still sometimes. Bronny's footwork, pacing, and extension finishes are still inconsistent, but that's not unusual for high school prospects. It's important to make the distinction here that Bronny's room for growth at the basket is not a matter of explosiveness. It's more so about becoming more fluid, changing directions, and also more comfortable in traffic. At this moment, he's a north to south driver and still needs to add more wiggle and flexibility to his driving game. This is really apparent with how often Bronny tries scoop finishes that can kind of trap him below the rim instead of maximizing his athleticism. Adding a floater would also help his in-between game. Something like this is nice, because right now, Bronny's pull-up is largely from 3. His mid-range and self-creation still have room for growth. James is the piece that binds a team together rather than a go-to scorer. Sometimes the critique on him is that he's not assertive enough. His footwork and shot though are clean and crisp, so I think it should be a matter of reps and then potentially growing into a role that requires more self-creation. Everything that James needs to get into a pull-up is there from even deeper range, so I'm fairly confident that it will come around from in between. But you can tell there are times where Bronny's not as on balance as he would hope yet. However, he's still so early in his development that I'm buying that he is going to get there to some extent at least. All he really needs is to hit 1 or 2 dribble pull-ups to attack closeouts, especially since I really trust his three-pointer. Or once he's coming out of ball screens, just being able to pull up from the midi. To his credit, we did see that a little bit more in AAU where he had some more scoring responsibilities. To wrap up Bronny's scoring, I want to go back to how he's used off the ball. He has gravity as a shooter, but also as a cutter and above the rim. In this way, as well as with his 3-ball and with his offensive half-court limitations, Bronny reminds me a little of Lonzo Ball. Away from the ball, Lonzo gets the back screen to get up and finish the lob. It's really similar from Sierra here with the back screen for Bronny to receive the lob. Doesn't quite work the same, but the result is still 2 points. By now, you've probably heard that Bronny quote-unquote plays the right way. In my opinion, that largely relates to his passing. In the open court, Bronny can float outlet passes over idle defenses or lead the charge up the floor. James pushes the pace from point A to point B in seconds, and he's creative with his deliveries as well. Bronny can toss passes with 1 or 2 hands, in traffic, and with terrific weight and zip. As he makes his way up levels, this should really pop with more spacing. Looking ahead, I will want to keep seeing more of his playmaking in the half court, although to be fair, the high school game doesn't usually lend itself well to those types of reads. In AAU ball with Strive for Greatness, Bronny got some of those pick and roll reps, and I actually thought he displayed some pretty nice instincts versus set defenses. Overall, it's how he reads the floor that impresses me. Bronny might not always make flashy reads, but he makes the right ones almost always. He connects plays, makes the ball flow, and finds the open man. The question is, because he still has time and room to grow here, is whether Bronny becomes a lead ball handler. Right now, Bronny is definitely better in transition than in the half court. He needs more experience and he does better with the entire floor ahead of him still. But in the big picture, Bronny's an intentional decision maker. He's a really steady ball handler, especially north to south. And he's a creative passer, whose game is scalable either with him being the main playmaker, or, I think ideally, with another ball handler next to him. On defense, I mentioned that Bronny could very well be in contention for best two-way prospect in his class. Simply put, I think that he's a tremendous instinctual defender. He's awesome in the passing lanes, he can fly in and anticipate, and not only that, but that first step that I mentioned earlier with his blossoming athleticism, that's really coming into play now. Bronny's a sturdy defender who's tough to beat off the dribble because of that mature physique. He's able to read the floor to come up with steals, blow up plays, and not just that, but I do think he has multi-positional potential. Bronny is 6'3", but he's long and he plays bigger than that, largely because of his strength. Last October, Sierra Canyon's coaching staff was adamant that Bronny was a positionless player who allows the team to size up or down. In high school, that was certainly the case. He took assignments all over the floor. But at the next level, I'm confident that Bronny is going to be able to defend both guard positions as well as smaller wings. He is always in a stance, he understands how to keep his man in front of him, and then he also really just generates plays on this side of the ball. Bronny is a two-way playmaker with his creativity and defensive versatility. Strictly in terms of USC, this is a huge acquisition for the Trojans. Bronny is a legitimately great player. He's somebody who's going to fit the college game well. Him, Isaiah Collier, and Boogie Ellis, that should be, a tremendous trio in terms of entertainment, in terms of scoring and playmaking. I think all three complement each other very well, and I'm excited to see what Bronny James brings to South Central. As always, if you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like, make sure to leave a comment telling me what you think of Bronny James. And if you enjoy the channel, if you want to watch more content like this, make sure to subscribe. Take care, and I'll catch you guys next time.